There we go. They're there. They can't see you, but they almost outnumber us, but they're waving. All right, guys, good to see you all. Welcome, everybody. Do we have any visiting Rotarians or only people that look like they're visiting? I haven't seen Matt in a while.
That long? I
said a while. I don't know. Time is relative anymore. So yeah, it seems like a long time. And how about any Rotaract? No Rotaract, no Interact. And I have I'm just going to use the slides for myself, and then we can just watch them the whole time because the slides aren't that exciting. But we do have. Do we have any guests of our Rotary members? No.
I'll introduce him. This is David Loya, my boss, Director of Community Development Department of the City.
Welcome. All right, welcome. And we will hear more from David in a little bit. I think he's going to orate. So that's good. That's good. We need that. We need that around here. So I'm going to again try to. I'm going to change what I'm sharing with you all. You've seen these. Wave goodbye to their faces because I'm going to stop sharing them. And I'm going to share something else. Let's see what I can share. I'm going to share this, see what happens. Aha.
You're back.
Yeah, they're back. That's not the one I want to share. It's a tricky wicket here. There we go.
You're back.
They're gone. We're just, you guys don't do anything weird if you're on screen because I'm going to constantly be sharing you without any. There we go. Try this. I had it before. The problem is my computer thinks I have two screens, and I then told it I only had one, and I think that you don't care. Drag it up over there. Well, but I think I got rid of the second screen, though. That's the problem.
No, you've got two screens right now. So
no, I know, but I'll show you what I mean. But yes,
because you're sharing that with them.
Well, but I want to share it with you guys.
Then you can right click here. No. I'm trying to your desktop.
As you're at your table, why don't you all have a moment to chit chat and share with each other something that you hope to do this summer.
Good morning, Amanda.
There's voices in the air. So if I could hear just
yeah. No, see, I got rid of that and then
multi-standard displays. Duplicate.
Okay, there we go.
Bam.
Okay. Yeah, I turned it off trying to fix the problem. I created a different problem.
That's okay. If you got real clever, now I'm gonna make this one go away. I'm gonna stop this for a second. Oh, you got a lot going on here.
There it is.
There you go.
Okay, now just put it. Okay, we'll make it meeting mode. Hope that works.
And you aren't sharing right now, so you'll have to share again.
Okay, right. All right.
Put that Roby's face.
Oh, where'd it go? Isn't that weird? Okay, here we let's get back to here. It says I'm sharing. Is this the one I was sharing?
Yep. Now there's not two options.
Okay.
So they see what you see.
Let's see, I'm sharing them again.
And then so you have them open twice. Very clever. So if you want to leave them open, make it click change the change shrink it. So click the no, bring it back up. We got this.
Where was that?
Right here. Yeah, we'll have to bring it all the way back up. This one. Shrink it like this. Yep. And then just kind of squeeze it over to the side. And you can put it here. And so then we'll all be able to see it too.
That's what he did before, but it won't move.
It's just because this stupid
All right. So, Dick, do you have the Zoom people in front of you? Could you make? Yeah, so you have the Zoom people. Could you make sure that you keep an eye on muting folks? Mute them. I can't mute the people in the room, so we can only mute the people on the screen. All right, guys, sorry about that. It's called Modern Technology and Maggie. There's a whole book about it. So we're going to give you back. So did everybody, no more sharing, Mark, that might. Hi.
Not president anymore. I really hung over. I thought you were president.
I know, it was last year. Yeah. And last year was all just a dream. We didn't really do everything on Zoom. And so backpacks, let me ask a question. Do we do that this next week?
Yes.
One more week. Has anyone signed up?
Yes, but
Okay, if you're, no, that's great. If you got signups, we're all happy. We're all happy. Thank you.
We're all set, Maggie.
There are voices coming through the screen.
We're all set for next week. We have one more week and we're all set next week.
Okay, thank you. Sorry you can't see that disembodied voice, but she's there. Thank you, Lisa. And is that our last week? Are they out of school after
Yes.
that? Okay, woohoo. So tomorrow we have an opportunity I wanted to share with you, but we'll get to that in a minute. Next week is the top 10. We're going to be meeting over there. We're going to be eating in a big space like the old days. We are not going to be on Zoom that day.
yes, we will. We will.
We are going to be on Zoom that day. And so.
What we won't have, interaction, but if people want to watch from Zoom, they can.
Okay,
they can do that.
great. So, and I would like to take this moment because we are talking about that to, I see we have another guest or another, are you with Interact?
I am.
Would you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Cindy. I'm also the vice president next year.
All right.
Yay, woo! That's awesome. That's awesome. And then after that meeting, we will be going outside to do the club photo that we're trying to sneak in before the end of the year, which seems to be the way we've been doing it. It's good. It's good. We also have a highway cleanup coming up. Is that still going to be on, Carol, on the 11th?
Yes, it is. It's going to be beautiful weather and we're going to hit it early in the morning, 8:30 to 10 at the Nature Center.
That's great. Great. That's good. That's good. Then people get up early birds and get it done and go on with your day. Makes it harder though for us after that to go over to Rita's and have margaritas. It seems a little more awkward. So that kind of fell out. So that's
We'll
not
have to
happening.
come up with something else.
Yeah, that kind of fell out. But that's okay. Yeah, so Terri says we can. So anyone who's there and feels the need to go over to Rita's who may not even be open at 10:30, but that's okay. Just bang on the door. And then the 17th is Ian's last meeting. And he's not in the room, so I will tell you also. No, he's not. He said he wasn't. Is Ian on Zoom? Oh, that's right. We won't say anything about anything. There. Now you know all there is to know about the planning. And then the 25th of June, are we still going to be doing something with the Oyster Festival? Do you know anything about that, Mr. AJ? Okay, so do you have more information about, are we going to be doing out with the beer again? And it's all day on that Saturday? Okay. I'll be out of town again. Oh, well. No beer for me. And then July 8th is when our next class victim, our next president will start her year, and we'll be excited about that. I want to point out that Ian had July 10th on this originally, and I thought that was a trick. So you would have had no one here on Sunday, I'm sure, but it's not. Any other announcements for events happening that we want people to know about? Okay, then onward. So this is, Carol, do you want to speak to this event that could happen tomorrow if we have people who want to do this?
Yes, we're having a walk-a-thon, Move to End Hunger. And what this is all about is we are in the final stretches of the rebuild campaign for Food for People. And we're kind of inviting the general public in. And I know many of you in the room have already contributed to Food for People for the rebuild. Thank you. But if you want to come out, bring your umbrella in the morning. And we have several different course links set up at the Arcata Marsh. And you can be part of the walk-a-thon. You get entered for a chance to win a kayak and a personal flotation device donated by Cocatat. And or if you're really thinking, I'm not ready to go out there tomorrow, and you want to sponsor me, I'm almost there to my goal of sponsors to make 1,000 for this event. So we're really kind of broadening out to the greater community to all be a part of getting us through the finish line and completing the rebuild. And if you've driven by 14th Street, you'll see there's like a steel framework. It actually looks like an outline of a building is happening. So if you get a chance to drive by, it's exciting that it's actually taking shape.
Right. Just as that whole carbuncle or whatever the word is, kind of led us into the pandemic, hopefully you getting that building going and started is leading us out of it. So
Yes.
where are you on your pledges? How much more do you need?
Well, I had put a goal for this event to make $1,000, and I need 250 more to make my goal.
Okay.
So if you're interested, you could email me or text or chat with me on the chat, and I'll send you a little link to my personal fundraiser page for this event.
Okay. Do you think we could come up with $250 in this room, in the Zoom room? If we can, let's let Carol know. Let's put her over her and just text.
Thank you,
Carol.
Randy. Randy just did 50. Thank you. Oh,
Yeah,
and
they're doing their Zoom thing. So let's see if we can get that 250 by the end of the meeting,
Okay.
folks. And we could even go higher than that because
nice.
we all know that the inflation aspect of that building is more. So we probably
It sure is.
phone number, Carol.
My phone number is 707-834-4113. And I guess you could Venmo. Well, actually, I can just send you guys who said yes. I'll send you a little link. I'll email you a little link, and then you can just click your amount. Okay.
Okay. So people in the room, since they're not on chat, they're going to text you their information.
Awesome.
And that would be great. And does anybody want to go out there tomorrow? Anybody want to go for a walk?
I'll be there with an umbrella. It'll be warm.
You'll be there at 8 to 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I'll be there with an umbrella.
What time are we supposed to be there tomorrow morning again?
It's at 10 o'clock. 10
Oh,
o'clock.
okay.
I think the rain gets heavier in the afternoon, but I have a lovely umbrella, and in the marsh, it's kind of neat to walk in the rain.
And we don't melt.
No, we don't.
In Humboldt County, we don't melt.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can do 1, 3, or 4.5 miles. So,
Well, I think I'll probably try to see you out there. So
awesome.
thank you, Carol.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Ooh, I'm getting all kinds of messages. Thank you. I'll send you those links. Okay.
She's hot. She's hot there. It's going crazy. Great. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thanks.
So this is a reboot. I really like this picture. So it's I'm bringing it back. Let me get rid of this. I'm bringing this picture back. I think that was great. I think this should be one of our recruitment posters for Rotary, I think, because it's beautiful. Let's see what's happening. No. And my computer wants us to stay here forever. Let's see what happens. Oh, for Pete's sake. That's how my mom swears, because she doesn't use swear words. Because that's not what I'm thinking right now. No, I'm supposed to.
I go to your very lower left.
Oh, yeah, but
Keep going.
no, I know, but but it should be able to do it like I did it every other time up to this point. Anyway, I'm sharing this too because Scott's not on. I don't think Scott's on. Huh? What'd you say? I can drop it and see if that helps, or throw it against the room. I also wanted to bring back this. Could we just rebid Scott's wine? I think we should just sell more wine and just let him know. He's not here, he's not in town. We can just go to his house, we can pick it, clean it. But before we get to the raffle, I wanted to do some brags. I want to see if anyone has anything they want to brag about. And in this room, we don't have to pay for that. So it's free, unless you want to pay for that. So yes, Terri.
It's taken 9 days since my husband fell off the back of his pickup truck and fractured his fibula and it's been cast. And yesterday I stopped swearing at him.
How's the arm that you broke?
That's 9 days. That's probably a new record, right? Yeah, that's a tough.
I swore for 8 and stuff.
Did he fall or jump?
He
Was he pushed?
I'm gonna make her swear again.
he forgot that he's not 25 years old. And he got ramps to the back of his pickup truck from an old and I was dead. Not by the ramp. And so please, man. And it's mostly at urgent care, they were only. So just think twice, ask your wife or someone who loves you. She thinks it's a good idea for you to do what you do. And if she says no, it's still good.
And your husband, what did he do for a living? What did he do for a living? Remind me.
Engineer.
Huh, so he knows about gravity. and
Yes.
force.
Well, at least he wasn't a rocket scientist. I mean, because then, Yeah, so that's a rough road for you for a
I have
while.
a brag though, as a
Yes.
tradition, I probably should have been more organized. And that is, so my 2 daughters grew up in Rotary, and both have babies now, but Lacey, the youngest, is a family nurse practitioner. She's moved back with her husband, Casey Coelho, who also is a local boy, and she's working in a clinic as a family nurse practitioner
Where's she now?
in Fortuna.
All right,
And
okay.
then being a food provider down there.
So that's great. Let me just check in with our Zoomers. Can you hear these people?
Maybe they're
Doesn't it weird now the shoes on the other foot, we don't know what's happening in the room? Oh, Scott is here. Oh. Whoops. Well, Scott, I was just joking. Unless you're good with it, then we'll send Amanda right over. So it sounds like they may not be hearing you. So why don't you? I hate to say this, but Greg, why don't you come up here and speak from here?
Yes.
No, I'm sorry, I'm so shy, I don't want to. So I am going to brag about someone who I will be related to by marriage soon. So my son Riley, who some of you know was a Rotary baby, is getting married on August 13th to Tori Laidlaw, who you might know, Ed Laidlaw, who was a fireman. Anyway, hello. Is that, how am I doing there?
He was standing on the mat.
I hit my mark. Whoever set the mark.
Oh, wait, but you have to match the mat.
Set
to
the marker off.
You
There
have
we
to
go.
match the mat to the laptop.
Anyway, Tori is she's just returned to Humboldt County after 3 years of physical therapy school. She's now a doctor of physical therapy and will be starting work with Providence on June 6th, and they'll be married August 13th in Fieldbrook. So I'm bragging on them getting married. They've been together 10 years since they were in high school, and she'll be, I hope, cracking my back or whatever they do for free.
No, physical therapists don't. I think
Well, they
that.
stretch and bend and
I think
work.
that's worth at least $50. All right, thanks. Anybody else? I know there's other stuff happening out in the world. Yes, Dallas. Come up here. Come up here. It also gets you on the camera for future.
So you said they've been together for 10 years since high school. So have me and my wife. And this is going to be our first anniversary coming up next week.
All right. You have any exciting plans?
We were going to go camping because that's fun. But our dog got her foot cut and messed up. So now she's limping around on 3 legs. So let's go another time. But yeah.
Well, let me, since you're new to the club, let me tell you what most of us do. Who can tell him what most people do for their anniversary in this club? They go to Larapin's. So if you don't know, Larapin's is this very nice restaurant out in Trinidad. You might want to check that out because that seemed to be the most popular thing to do. But then again, camping in your backyard sounds like a lot of fun too. So, thank you, Dallas. Can you get him in? Yeah, anybody else? Anything else you want to share? I want to call on Matt because I've been
Okay, the only thing I have to share is my daughter Tasha, who is a Rotary brat, when she was little, has managed to stretch her college fund into age 26 and turned it into a self-funding travel fund wrapped around education. She's currently in Maastricht, Netherlands, going to school and expected back in a week.
Oh, wow.
wow, good for her.
Runs out of money, so that's all.
Yeah, so Greg, the $50, why don't you give it to Matt? Because he probably needs to replenish.
Look at his balance sheet of mine. It's not going that way.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else have anything they want to share with the group? Wow. All righty then. So anybody online there want to tell us anything? So weird. Are they all muted? Are they there? Am I muted? Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Anybody? Yes, speak. Anybody there want to share anything?
Oh, I'll share something. I'm proud of my husband, who's part of Open Studios this weekend, and he'll be the one open studio in Manila. And there's so many great artists that are going to be, they're all back this weekend and next, and some are open on Friday nights. So if you're looking for something to do on a rainy weekend, get out to Open Studios.
That's right. It's this weekend. That's a great event. Okay, thank you. Anyone else out there in disembodied voice land? I make it sound so attractive, don't I?
Sound like it's a seance.
Yeah. Wait. I'm hearing voices. John.
Not a brag, but tonight is opening night of Crabgrass band season.
Anybody going? Excuse me, anyone going? I was thinking of going, depends on how much it rains, but if we got a crowd there. Oh, good, okay. It's supposed to snow. Yeah, it's gonna stop raining in a half hour and it's gonna start snowing. What the heck? Okay, well, good, yeah. And Rebecca, it says yay, Rebecca. So Rebecca, are you going to the Crabs game too?
Yeah, I've been practicing for a year. I'm stoked to go to the Crabs game. The band will be there Friday night and Sunday.
Good deal. Yeah, so this, if we had makeups anymore, I think if you go to the Crabs game tonight, that would count as a makeup. Because we're definitely gonna have enough Rotarians there in the rooms or in the house, so to speak. So, all right. So we are gonna do the raffle if our raffle folk are ready. I know this makes Stephanie so nervous. Everyone. So why do it out of service? We're working you through your hate, your fear, your irrational fear of raffles.
Okay, 820010. 820010. Did you? Oh, I even told you. Got a full ball. And we're back to
The President's Club to be a rat trap.
You don't, Matt, unfortunately, you don't know how true that is in terms of rat traps. Yeah,
Can I do one crabs, Brad?
yes.
My nephew Hayden Bodie, who was a Eureka High graduate over in Butte County, is gonna play for the crabs this year. He's a pitcher.
Oh, right. Well, we need to definitely go out and root for him. Is he like, he's good, right?
Well, yeah, I think so.
I don't know how to say that any more subtly than that. He better be.
I haven't watched him since high school, but he was fun to watch. He also played football for Eureka High. Just a good athlete.
Cool. Well, we'll see him. So who gets our next, who's, and the pot is nothing because somebody won it last week again.
The last three are 979. So odd.
That's Dick. You know, what I find really interesting, it's weird when you think about irrational fears. No, I'm just, no, because yeah, aren't we all constantly thinking about, it's like she's afraid to do this, but she dives, you know, she goes underwater with all that stuff on, and it's called diving, right? Sharks. I mean, so to me, it's like my fear of doing that seems a little more rational. So I would be happy to do the tickets for you as long as I never have to go and dive. But it's just, yeah, and that will bring my fear on. So it's all, we all have our own thing, obviously. So without further ado, speaking of things, I'm going to bring up Greg, and he is going to introduce our speaker. Thank you, sir.
Welcome. I'm on the mat. Am I in the frame, Mr. Johnson? Am I okay?
Well,
That's two different questions.
Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah, am I located appropriately, as I should say? Well, it's my pleasure this morning to introduce the Director of Community Development for the City of Arcata, Mr. David Loya. And Dave has been in that role since 2016, and you've been with the city about 15 years now. He's going to talk, and we've probably been hearing a little bit about the Gateway Plan. It's kind of an exciting and certainly community changing idea and project. And oh, there I am on the screen. Get down below the guy there. Okay.
It's not about you there.
Yeah. And you know, I work in economic development. One of the issues that we're really dealing with and trying to figure out around the labor shortage and a lot of other things around here is the lack of affordable housing, and not only affordable housing, but housing at all. And we've been dealing a lot, and I work with a lot of employers who are dealing with an inability to hire people all across the income spectrum, from the top to the bottom. And that's because not only is for folks who aren't earning as much, there's not, you know, the affordability is an issue, but even those who are here, they're paid well, are having a hard time finding houses. So housing is a big issue, and it's one that we're dealing with from the economic development side. And of course, Arcata is going to have amazing growth coming with the expansion of Cal Poly and a number of other projects. So I thought it was a good time to hear from Dave, who's going to, you know, fix it all. So, David Loya. No pressure.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely going to fix it all, and sometime by the end of the year. Thank you, everyone. My name is David Loya, and I am the Director of Community Development. And I'm super happy to be here. I'm also super happy to see that it's a very small group, because my irrational fear is a paralyzing fear of public speaking. I just wanted to start with a show of hands, and you can show a hand inside your head. You don't have to actually show your hand if you don't want to. But I'm going to ask a few questions. And part of the reason I'm going to ask these questions is in part to help me understand, where you're coming from, but also for you to reflect on where you're coming from, where your neighbors are coming from. One of the things that I find in the work that I do is that oftentimes we're talking about, a major shift in the way that we're planning on doing something, or, it's a new project in your neighborhood, or whatever it is that we're doing in planning or doing something for the community, when you're talking to people, surprisingly, they're primarily thinking about how is this going to impact me? And that's what you hear back from them. It's how is this going to impact me? And the irony is that the planning work we're doing long range planning work, 20 years into the future, 50 years into the future, we're doing this planning work for people who aren't even here. Many of us won't be here when this planning work is really vitally needed. But we're the ones that get to make the decisions. So I invite you to think about not only how does this impact me, but what's our responsibility to the future, Arcadians? What's our responsibility to folks who need our resources, or we need their resources, that they're part of our community. Our nurses, our doctors, our cops, our folks that are working at the Safeway. We need those folks to have houses so that we can get those services. So that's, it's a little bit of a win-win when we think about it that way. So I'm going to ask a few questions. First off, one of my favorites, how many people were born in Humboldt County? All right, pretty good, and online. Pretty sizable number of people for this group. It probably says something about being a Rotarian. How many people have lived here for more than 20 years? Okay. How many people have lived here for more than 10? Okay, let me do that the other way around. If you've already said that you lived here for more than 20, more than 10, and more than 5? Okay, so that's pretty good. We've got a long-term residents, many folks who are born. How many people live in Arcata? Okay. How many people want to live in Arcata? Okay. How many people have actively sought to live in Arcata before and haven't been able to? Okay. So a fair number of folks. And then just real quick, how many of you own your own homes? Okay. Well, yeah. Looking after it for the bank, you said. Okay, so that's great. And then just a couple of show of hands for, I got to have at least one realtor in the room. Realtor? Yeah. Okay. So we'll call on you at some point. How many doctors do we have in the room? Former doctors? Huh? Okay. Future doctors? Okay, great. And how many folks work in service industry of some sort? Okay, fair amount. Okay, so all that is to sort of cue us up to what we're thinking about. In particular, if you own your own home and you're living in Arcata, then a lot of the times I think that your perspective might be that, hey, things are cool. I got it going on. I don't really need anything. I don't need this new planning work. And in fact, the more people that you bring into my neighborhood, the worse it is for me. And I totally get that. The other day I was riding my bike in the forest, and I'd probably been riding for about an hour, and I hadn't seen a single soul. The whole time I was riding, I was thinking about this planning work that we're doing, planning for the future and the way that the city of Arcata is going to grow, the population is going to grow. And, and I was thinking about, where I moved from down in Los Angeles, where, if you go to the beach in Los Angeles, you got to get there early so you can put out a towel and mark your space, so that you have a space. And if you go to the beach in Humboldt County, you can walk, as long as you're not like right at the entrance, you can walk 100 feet and you'll be completely alone. And so it's wonderful. I think we all value sort of the open spaces. We value the natural environment. We all value the elbow room. Wouldn't you say? Everybody value elbow room, most part? Okay. So here's what's going on as far as I can tell, based on what I'm looking at. The city of Arcata, Humboldt County in general, has been growing pretty slowly. We've had a couple of big bumps, like post-war, there was a huge bump in our community. There's a lot of house building going on. A lot of people moved into the area, and there was a jump. And then it's been really slow and steady since that time. Over the last 20 years, we've had approximately, close to a 1% growth rate in Arcata. And if you look at the timeline between 2000 and 2010, the growth rate was closer to about 6%. I'm sorry, 0.6%, about 0.5%. And then since that timeline, it's been closer to 1%, a little over during certain periods. The other thing that's been happening in Arcata is that our population growth has been really closely linked with the university's headcount. So as the university gets more students, our population is growing. Kind of makes sense, major driver, so on and so forth. But what's happened since 2015, 2016 or so is that the university's headcount has taken a precipitous decline. It dropped off pretty steadily and through the pandemic pretty drastically. But during that same time frame, our population growth has increased. And so people are moving in who are not students. They're taking the housing that students used to live in. And we all know the university is now planning to grow pretty significantly. So we've got a plan for that growth, but that's not the only driver of growth. How many folks either themselves are or have met someone in the last month, let's say, that moved here from San Francisco or Los Angeles? Okay, and for the realtors in the room, how many of those folks, or for those who've gotten into this discussion with them, how many of those folks were able to come here and buy a cash offer on their house? Probably above asking, most of them. Okay, so there's a linkage here in my mind. Someone said to our city council yesterday, I'm gonna ask one more quiz. Who's heard of supply and demand? Somebody said to our council the other day that building more housing will not change the cost of housing. And I think I know where they were going with that. I had to fill in some gaps a little bit. I think what they meant to say was, we're not going to be able to satisfy the demand. And that's a scary thought. And it's a particularly scary thought if you say to me that we're never going to be able to supply all the housing that we need. And so let's just stop. Okay, so the gateway, I'll tell you a little bit about what that is and also some of the other planning efforts that are going on. And then I want to get into kind of a discussion. It's such a small group. I want to be able to answer questions instead of just orating. Maggie told me that since I didn't have a PowerPoint presentation, I was going to have to, really entertain you. And as my colleague Mark Andre once said, I don't have a PowerPoint, but I have some powerful points. I hope. So the Gateway Plan is sort of an ambitious future vision for what Arcata will look like, what it will feel like, how it will work, how we can bring housing and economic development to this community in a way that's sustainable, in a way that respects those wide open spaces in the elbow room that we all, cherish. It right now, under the current draft of the plan, is calling for really high density. There's at this point in the draft, and I want to be clear, it's a draft. There's allowance for up to 8-story buildings in some places, which is, I know, shocking to think, like 8-story buildings, right? Well, the reason why we propose that at the staff level is because in all the work leading up to this, we've been working on the plan for about 5 years now. In all the work leading up to this plan, the draft that's been released, what we heard consistently in every room we were in was we need more housing. There's not enough housing. Housing is not affordable. We want high density housing. We want the most of it that we can get. So we basically came out with a plan that was, the highest density that we could propose, that we felt we could reasonably propose. And we're working through that right now with the community just to hone in on what that high density housing looks like. So to that end, coming up in July, we're hoping to be able to start working on some public engagements where we'll be doing community design, where we'll be taking your ideas and reflections on what we're proposing to try and help craft what, when we look out and we see Arcata and we think, yeah, that's Arcata, that we're going to continue to feel that way as Arcata continues to develop. There's a lot to balance, a lot of policy to balance. Some folks are really concerned about, well, what about parking? What's going to happen with parking? It's going to be harder to park in Arcata. And that's probably true. You know, when you have more people, you have higher densities, it gets harder to park. And so the question is, you know, do we want to have a place for a car to be at night, or do we want a place for a family to be at night? Those are the kinds of policies that we're balancing. And I don't mean to make it so stark, but it really does boil down to, you know, the more we emphasize one thing, the less we're going to be emphasizing another. So we need to prioritize what our highest ambitions are for what the future is going to look like. And I know, you know, I know it's kind of scary. I know the change itself is scary, but I guess there's external factors that are really pushing us in this direction. It's not only the market. The market is going to drive this. We will be gentrified. I mean, you know, with telework, you know, people are going to move into our community. They're going to keep their jobs in San Francisco. They're going to be earning a San Francisco wage, and they're going to buy our homes. And, you know, the problem with you know, healthcare, you know, and we do really well up here for, you know, for the resources we have. But I think we all know that when you have a serious medical condition, you go down to the city. We all know how hard it is. Has anyone tried to get a doctor in this area? We all know how hard it is to get a primary care physician. A lot of that is linked to housing. Okay, so what do we do about it? We need to think carefully about it. So it's not only the market, it's also the state. The state is continually creating new housing law that takes local control away. Takes, you know, everybody wants to be able to go to a commission hearing when there's a new project in their neighborhood and say, well, I don't like this, I think you should do that with it. I don't like that, I think you should do this with it. And by the way, we want a new park, right? Because we want to, you know, we want to feel like, you know, that thing that was too big in our minds is now smaller, or that thing that was, you know, just a giveaway to the developers needs to give us something back. You know, there's lots of things that motivates these concepts. And we feel like that makes the process better. The state is basically saying, we're done with that. The state is saying, you jurisdictions are not producing enough housing. And so we're going to continue to adopt laws that basically make those approvals with no discretion, no public hearings. The jurisdictions have to approve them. And so, you know, we have market factors, we have state factors. I guess my appeal to the community is really whether you like it, you embrace it, you think it's the right thing to do, or whether you hate it, you think that Arcata should stay just the way it is. And you know, none of this newfangled planning work is going to fix anything. What I would say to you is this, is that it's happening. It's happening. And the only thing that we can do that will have a meaningful impact on what the future of our community looks like, if the state continues to push the direction it's going, and I think it will, is to get involved right now and to, you know, to embrace the fact that our community is changing and we need to help guide that change. So that's a lot. It's a big responsibility. It's on all of us. And you know, I hate to be the bearer of this news to those of you who find this, you know, appalling, but I think that we can find a good solution together. I think we can reasonably manage growth and development in our community that still provides for high quality, you know, spaces like the plaza, for example, like the trails that we were talking about earlier. So I want to open it up. I want to be able to answer, you know, questions or, you know, take pot shots or whatever it is that you want to do. And just kind of talk through what are the issues for you.
Yeah, the thing that keeps me up at night, I know it's going to happen, free market, Humboldt, State of California, they're going to do whatever they're going to do. I worry about infrastructure, fire, police, and public works.
Yep.
And not enough water, not enough septics, we've got a sewer system, not enough cops, not enough social workers help the cops. Yep. Fire department, I don't know what they're going to do. They're always broke. How's that? I mean, you've got to provide for that too if you're planning, right? Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a really good question. There's a lot of physical infrastructure that will need to support the growth, and there's also a lot of service infrastructure that will need to support that. And most of that is paid for either by direct fees. So when you build a house, you pay into the sewer and water infrastructure. You know, you pay a portion into streets and so on and so forth.
So the development will be paying a fair share of the cost towards those infrastructures. And similarly, when you build something, it increases the value of the property. That property then generates property tax, and that's how all these other services are provided.
Except Humboldt doesn't pay for any of that stuff, right?
Humboldt does not pay for any of that stuff. So there's, thank you for that pivot. Humboldt State the Cal Poly is growing, right? They've got their prospectus, they're growing. They're gonna, increase the programs. They're bringing all kinds of new students. Some of their students are gonna be online. They're gonna try and build a online learning community. But many students are gonna come to our community, and they're gonna need new classrooms. They're gonna need new dorms. They're gonna need new facilities for all kinds of things. And they just bought the bank. They bought the Craftsman's Mall. They bought the Stewart School building. So one of the things, what this looks like to me is the university is going to take care of itself. So again, we can either, drag our heels, say, no, this isn't going to happen. We're not going to allow it. And we're not going to provide for the, housing or whatnot that the community needs. And the university is part of the community. But it's still going to happen. The university is not going to fail. The university has oodles of cash right now. Becoming a Cal Poly is just like, they've got, they walk down the street and money is just falling out of their pockets. They should be at Rotary, right? So they will take care of themselves.
But they won't pay any impact fees.
They won't. Well, they pay impact fees, but they won't pay property tax. They're exempt from property tax.
So water hookup, sewer hookup, all that infrastructure, they do pay.
They pay for that.
Okay, good.
But they don't pay property tax, and they don't have to follow our local regulations. They don't follow our laws.
So you talked about how infrastructure would be paid for. Are there physical limitations to the infrastructure? There's only so much water in the Mad River. There's only so much capacity. How close are we to capacity with all of those things?
Right. Yeah. Well, for the water end of the spectrum, we're nowhere near it. For wastewater, we're also in the next 20-year horizon for growth, nowhere near it. We also will have to, make plans. I mean, with sea level rise, climate change, sea level rise, and the limited size of the wastewater treatment plant, we're going to have to figure out, well, what do we do next? And so that's part of the planning process.
Excuse me, when you say we're nowhere near it, you mean we're nowhere near having enough, or we're nowhere near capacity?
Nowhere near capacity. Yeah, we've got plenty of growth potential in the existing infrastructure for water and wastewater. We have constant problems with what's called inflow and infiltration. The pipes are leaky, and so when it rains, the water goes in, and then that makes it challenging at the plant. But we're continuing to improve that infrastructure as we go. But yeah, there's plenty of capacity. Susan?
I want to make sure I understand, no matter how progressive a jurisdiction is in creating housing, the state may mandate every jurisdiction to create housing without any local approvals, no matter how forward thinking they are.
Yeah, the state applies its laws, as a blanket. So you can have Huntington Beach, who's basically told the state, they're thumbing their noses at them, saying, we're not going to do what you say. And the state's taking them to the AG, the Attorney General, and saying, well, you deal with this, deal with them. The laws that they're implementing to address the challenges in Huntington Beach apply to us equally. And so one of the laws, for example, SB 35, says if you haven't met your housing share, so every 8 years we get a share of housing from the state. They say you have to build this many units to meet your housing need. If you don't build that number of units on certain milestones, halfway point, 3/4, and so on and so forth, then the state says that anyone who comes in and builds a project with at least 10% affordable housing can do so by right, and it doesn't matter what your laws say. So they don't go through a process. There's a new assembly bill that's working its way through the legislature that would allow any site that allows retail, commercial, or parking as a principally permitted use, as a use that you can do by right, can be developed with housing, regardless of what your general plan says, ministerially. So the developer comes in and the developer's in control. Doesn't matter what the neighbors think, doesn't matter if that's the only retail you have in your entire community, they can develop it. So I don't think that's going to become law, fingers crossed, but that's the direction that the state's heading.
So, two things. How many VRBOs are there in Arcata?
It's a good question. We just talked about this yesterday, 2 days ago at the council meeting. And we'll be bringing that back probably at the next meeting or the following. So if you're interested in this issue, please tune into the council meetings. We have about 140 right now, which is about 2% of our housing stock.
And the other thing, I moved here in 1974, so I lived in Arcata. It was Humboldt State.
Humboldt, no more.
Not that. And there were then, and there continue to be a lot of places where people live in Arcata that really are unhappy.
Yeah.
Landlords rent people places with no refrigerators, no stoves.
Yeah.
Rats. I mean, so I don't know how many of those places there are, but that seems also a place to help the housing, because we don't want people to live with rats in the refrigerator.
Yeah. When I moved to Humboldt about little over 25 years ago, I can say it was the first place I ever lived where during the wintertime we had literal mushrooms growing out of the wall. I couldn't believe it, but I'm the kind of person who I'm like, okay, I guess that's normal for here. But yes, substandard housing is a huge issue, and we're working right now to create a rental inspection program. This is bad news for people who own rentals because it's going to be a fee that you have to pay to the city to have us come and inspect your house. But there's some really bad living conditions out there, and they really do need to be monitored for health and safety purposes. The other unfortunate thing about that is that the fees that the property owners are going to have to pay for this program is undoubtedly going to get passed on to the renters. Rent is already crazy, ridiculously expensive in our community, and most households pay more than 30% of their income, which is kind of considered affordable. Most households who are renting pay more in our community than 30%.
So it's greed.
It's greed, it's market forces. The last time I spoke to this group, it was interesting. I'd done an analysis that looked at year over average rent costs. And for the last 20 years at that time, it's probably more now, for the last 20 years, rental rates have gone up 7% year over. And I asked the question, whose income has gone up 7% year over? I mean, mine has.
The landlords.
I have a question about public transportation. So I've grown up my whole life, and using public transportation in Humboldt is not something that is bred into my brain.
Yep.
Because you don't have a lot of it, right?
Yep.
I did a couple of years commuting from Eureka to University where I work on the bus, just so I didn't have to deal with parking. So as all of these people come into town, when I travel to San Francisco, I don't think about, I park my car whatever hotel I'm at, and I Uber or whatever train. So I don't think that we can just magically fix all the public transportation, but I think a couple things that we can do is at least increase the hours in which our current public transportation already goes, and kind of work in those alternative transportation incentives, right, for folks moving in here. I'm sure that's probably already on the plan somewhere, but.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Let me tell you a couple of the things that are included in the plan right now, and also a couple of things that are going on in our busing system overall. I'll start with that. We're looking at how do we make the bus system more efficient, and so we're constantly working with HTA to figure out, like, how do we make these services better. And so I think we're honing in on a plan to try and do better now, because you're right, it's not magically going to change. None of this is magically going to change. It's going to take a lot of energy, effort, and money, and also shifting our mindset, in particular when it comes to alternative transportation. Because you're right, you can't reasonably get around by bus here like you can in a big city. We just can't support it. There's not the ridership. So what are we going to do about that? How do we fix it? The solutions that we've come up with, and we'd love to hear your input on this, is number one, we're piloting this project right now with the Sorrel Place, the 44-unit affordable housing project just down the street here at the old Isaacson site. Every person in that building, every household in that building gets 2 bus passes that work across services, and they come with the unit. So right now, you rent a unit and you get a parking space. In the future, you'll rent a unit, you'll get a bus pass. So we're trying to promote that program. Also trying to incentivize, other modes of alternative transportation infrastructure. So one of the ways that this works, and I won't get into too much detail about, how the approval process works, but to develop an Arcadia, you'll need to, select from a series of amenities. One of those amenities might be that you produce indoor bike lockers and showers. So when you decide to ride your bike to work, you don't have to park it outside where it's going to get stolen. You can park it inside, then you can take a shower before you get to work. Another amenity that we're including is car share. So the units themselves, and again, we're piloting this on the Isaacson's project. The project will own a car, and everyone in the facility can use that car. It's going to be an all electric. They're going to plug in at the facility, and so you just program with your app. You come and use the car, bring it back when you're done. So you don't have to have a car. People flipped out when they heard that the Isaacson's has 44 units and it has 13 parking spaces, and they flipped out. They said, you're not going to be able to park in this neighborhood. I'm happy to report I walk by there all the time, all times of day. There's always parking on the street. So we can do this. We can do this. We can think a new thought. We can do a new way. We can eventually get there. We do have to invest in that infrastructure. And so I think that the kinds of things that we're proposing to include within these new developments, these new high density developments are going to do that. Last thing I'll tell you about incentivizing alternative transportation is that there's no market for parking right now. We all want it for free. We demand it for free. We feel like it's our right to have parking. And not only that, it's our right to have parking right there. And you know what? The best thing about Sunrise Rotary is you can get parking right there. And so, so how do we shift that? How do we start changing that dynamic? Well, if we decouple the housing from the parking and we say, yeah, you can live here, you're going to get a bus pass, you're not going to get a parking space, but you can pay for a parking space if you want, instead of paying for the bus pass.
It's like how most of the world does it.
Yeah.
I mean,
We value it, we just don't want to pay for it.
someone used to go to New York.
I'm getting the hook over here. Can you see Maggie getting closer and closer?
We do. I mean, this is a great topic. There's a lot, and I think it'd be great to have you come back and kind of keep us, have these conversations. We
Sure,
really
be happy to.
appreciate it. Thank you. And in your honor, I have a haiku I wrote. So I'm just gonna. You don't.
I'm gonna leave my card.
Oh,
if you
yes.
wanna Reach out.
Yes, please. So let me see, guys. I'm going to see if I can pull up my haiku for you. I know it's crazy. What? Because we know haikus are important. This is my haiku. Okay. How's that?
Very Maggie. That's not my first try.
Have a great day. Have a great weekend.